5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time, and I'm probably not going to spend the whole time, because one of the things that I want to focus on here, and is probably the last questioner, is I think from a sense, Mr. Cole, you've been here many times, and we've had these conversations. Others have been here as well. Today, normally committee, especially in judiciary, reminds me more of a P90X workout. One side, you're going hard for 5 minutes, and the next side, I rest for 5 minutes. Hard for 5 minutes, rest for 5 minutes. And what happens here is you see a unilateral sort of discussion and understanding that what we have, nobody's comfortable with. They don't want to put our national security at risk, nobody on this panel, nobody in this Congress, and many people in the country. They don't want to put, but they're also very uncomfortable with the collection. They're very uncomfortable with the way it has been dripped out of this is what's happening now, this is what's happening now, 2 weeks later, here's what's happening. By the way, now Angry Birds, whatever it is, it's just dripping out. And so every time we begin to maybe put a hold on it, it becomes a deeper problem with another revelation. And some of that was definitely not intended. Some of that was leaked maliciously. Some of that was, and I recognize all that. And from my part of Georgia, people understand national security. They understand patriotism. That is not the problem. What they don't understand is a loss of trust in the government. Frankly, a loss of trust in this administration, a loss of trust. So what I really would like to focus on just for a moment, and if you have a lot you want to say, great. If you don't, then that's okay. But I think we've discussed a lot of specific recommendations. We've talked about, have you found out, have you showed it? The mosaic, as my dear friend from North Carolina talked about investigations. But mine goes back to an essential question that this Congress will have to answer. And I believe it's the only reason that the President came out and said we need to change this, we need to look at this, is because, frankly, the poll numbers were bad. You've been looking at this for 5 years. You knew it for 5 years. And now it's, well, this is getting bad. We need to get ahead of this. Let's show leadership. The whole crowd's up there. Let me run in front and lead. The problem is trust. So my question, as we look at this, with no matter what recommendations may come here, and I've associated myself with many on both sides of the aisle of the problems that we have, is in my district and in many others, NSA has become not a 3-letter word, but a 4-letter word. It has become something that they just don't understand and they don't trust anymore. So my question is, no matter what recommendations we give, Mr. Cole, any of you want to talk about it, for just a moment, how do we restore that? And that's the basic question here. How do we restore trust?
Congressman, I think you raise a very, very important point, which is trust. We come to this through years of both Republican and Democratic administrations where the intelligence community has determined that it's appropriate to classify a lot of this information that we're now talking about in open hearings. And they had a good faith determination at the time that it should be classified for the national security and safety of our country. It's out, and we're talking about it. And the American people deserve to have answers, and they deserve to have a level of transparency that makes them comfortable about these things. And I think that this administration, quite frankly, has taken the bull by the horns. And these are not easy issues. These are not easy resolutions. These are not easy balances to find. But this administration has gone very far in trying to be transparent, in trying to bring these programs back into line, in trying to balance how far we can go, how transparent we can be, how many civil liberties and privacy interests we have to respect, and how much of the national security side we have to respect, and where that balance is. And these are tough balances. You're not going to do it overnight. You're not going to sit there and say, oh, that's easy. Let's just go over and disclose all of this, or let's just not collect this information. These are things that if you don't collect it and something blows up, people are going to be very angry. But these are also things that if you do over-collect and you do over-classify and you do inhibit people's civil liberties, they're going to be upset about that too. So we have to find that balance, and I wish it were easier, but it's not.
And look, I respect that, and you've been up here and you're an advocate for what the administration is doing, and I get that. But I think the trust factor here is the biggest issue, and I think not grabbing the bull by the horns, I think it was grabbing a microphone and saying, I'll make you feel better. And I understand that. But at the same point, it doesn't go to the heart of the question. It doesn't go to that trust issue on how we in this Congress can explain that and how the administration can make it look more instead of a public appearance and we're going to get, you know, a PR pit, how we actually solve this. You know, look, I respect everyone. Thank you for being here. But that goes back to the real issue. This is a trust issue. We can do the recommendations, but we got to get back to a trust, and we just don't have that trust right now. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The chair.